18 individuals connected to the murder of the Darunegala Nuri Estate Superintendent sentenced to death. Avant-garde vessel anchored at the Galle port released on a 35 million rupee bond. Attorney General's Department prepares to investigate evidence filed before court in connection with the bond issue. Basil Rajapaksa is designing a political bomb together with the UMP, a revelation by Minister Dilan. Expenditure heads of the Ministries of Sustainable Development and Wildlife debated in Parliament today.
2015 ගත්තාම අලි 238ක් වැඩි මැරලා තියෙනවා ඒ වගේම මිනිස්සු 70.
2015 වර්ෂයේ අලි මිනිස් ගැටුම වැළකීම සඳහා රුපියල් මිලියන 275ක් වැය කරා.
Indian outrage at minister's $7.3 million house with bulletproof bathroom.
Hello there, very good evening to all our viewers and welcome to Friday's edition of Primetime News. We are coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Joel Outspoon.
Top story for tonight.
On to our top story. The Avisavilla High Court imposed the death sentence on 18 individuals today. High Court Judge M.D.S. Aberatna sentenced the individuals to death over the murder of the superintendent of the Nuri estate in Darunegala, Nihal Pereira.
While the murder of Nihal Pereira took place on the 5th of July 2013, indictments were filed by the Attorney General against 21 individuals, including the former chairman of the Darunegala Pradeshya Sabha, Anil Champika Vijay Singha. Issuing the verdict in the case that was heard for a period of 3 years, the High Court judge declared that indictments filed against 18 of the defendants were proven beyond reasonable doubt. Superintendent of the Nuri estate in Darunegala was killed on the 5th of July 2013. The final rites of Nihal Pereira took place at the Mount Lavinia General Cemetery. On that day, a protest march was carried out against the murder of the superintendent. The former chairman of the Darunegala Pradeshya Sabha surrendered himself to the police in connection to the murder on the 9th of July 2013. Later, on the 4th of August 2013, a police post was established at the Nuri estate. Meanwhile, Galle Chief Magistrate Nilupuli Lankapura ordered the release of the avant-garde vessel, which has been anchored at the Galle harbour for over a year on a bond of 35 million rupees. Attorneys representing the company informed court that all weapons and explosives aboard the vessel have been extricated as of present. The vessel was taken into custody by the Sri Lankan Navy on the 13th of October 2015 for transporting a stock of illegal weapons and explosives. The consideration of the request made by former Minister Basil Rajapaksa to travel overseas in order to receive medical treatment was postponed until the 7th of December when the case was taken up for examination before Colombo High Court Judge Padmini N. Ranawaka. The attorney appearing on behalf of the Attorney General informed court that a report on the health of Basil Rajapaksa needs to be obtained through the Judicial Medical Officer. Basil Rajapaksa, who arrived in court, was quizzed by journalists.
Our party's policy is to be true to the people and the nation. According to the party constitution, that is the main responsibility of our members. No, I am now part of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
I think it will exceed 100. All those people will join us on the day Parliament is dissolved. We do not want to disturb them right now and make a mess of everything. We need to be very vigilant.
State Minister Dilan Pereira revealed of an attempt to split the Sri Lanka Freedom Party.
I have received information on the new party, that of Basil Rajapaksa, along with a few members of the United National Party are engaged in discussions. They have been discussing about creating a political explosion on the local government elections. There are details on this. There are details on where they met. Since Basil Rajapaksa and a few from the UMP are attempting to split the SLFP, these members have sworn to assist in this. The local government election process was discussed at a house near the water's edge.
The Attorney General's Department has planned to inspect the evidence and attachments that were produced to cope with regard to the Treasury bond issue. Attorney General Jayant Jayasuriya said that the evidence is currently with the Prime Minister. The Attorney General said that following an inquiry made from him with regard to the Treasury bonds, Parliament was informed of the legal nature of the bonds as well as several other matters. He added that the facts were presented based on a request for advice made by the Office of the Chief Government Whip. In addition, the AG has written to the Speaker requesting for another 25 attachments in the COPE report. Attorney General Jayant Jayasuriya said that 6 officials from the civil and criminal divisions are probing the content of the COPE report on the Treasury bond scam. The Dinamina newspaper reported today that the Prime Minister has been informed with regard to the legal matters unearthed by the AG's investigation on the bond issue. It also noted that the 3-member committee of lawyers has studied the matters of what legal issues had arisen through the bond issues as well as what measures were adopted for that purpose. It has also looked into whether the matter caused a loss to the central bank and whether officials or private sector had committed any criminal action. Questions were also raised in this regard at a media briefing today.
The President was handed over a report with regard to the bond issue. What recommendations have been made?
The report was prepared by the Central Working Committee of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and we handed over the report. 1/3 of that report has been revealed. If the remainder is also made public, we will be put out of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party Central Working Committee. The other recommendations will be announced by the Central Working Committee. I must note that these are revolutionary recommendations. This is with regard to the bonds, penalizing those accountable, reclaiming the loss, as well as preventing such issues from taking place again.
The Attorney General has made several recommendations to the Prime Minister with regard to the COPE report. Are you aware of that?
I was informed yesterday of that. I tried to contact the fellow members of COPE, but I could not contact them. When this was directed to the Attorney General, we told them that there no one else in the world can a COPE report punish anyone. We told them that this is a long process and made recommendations. Based on the response, we are pleased that our recommendations have been taken for consideration.
Meanwhile, MP Chatura Senaratne also made a statement on the bond issue on the Newsline segment.
Did a document containing signatures change hands recently in Parliament?
A document with signatures has changed hands on Wednesday. After COPE has identified the wrongdoers and made certain decisions, MPs' signatures have been sought to make a request for a separate measure to be taken from within Parliament on the bond issue.
From what will that request be made?
I think there is a plan afoot to make void COPE.
Well, the complete segment will be aired on 10 p.m. primetime news bulletin on Sirius TV, our sister channel.
Today is the 12th day of the debate of the 2017 budget. The expenditure heads of the Ministries of Sustainable Development and Wildlife were debated today.
As a result of the human-elephant conflict during the year 2013, 206 elephants and 70 humans have died. In 2014, 231 elephants and 67 people have died. And in 2015, 238 elephants and 70 humans have died. When comparing the past 3 years, it is evident that this human-elephant conflict is getting worse and it has not even been resolved. 13% of the land was allocated for wildlife. An elephant conservation centre was built in Horopatana during my period. Honourable Minister declared it open and then it was I who constructed it. 22 elephants are held here. If those elephants were in the open wild, the loss of lives would have been even more. Sustainable development is not something that can be achieved through one ministry. Without a proper plan, sustainable development cannot be achieved. The Wildlife Conservation Department cannot speak of sustainable development by merely keeping the lands. The Department of Wildlife Conservation is divided into two. We need an institution which connects all of these and an institution which will work towards sustainable development. Sri Lanka is ranked number 1 when it comes to the human-elephant conflict. Since 1950, 1,375 people have been killed over this. Over 4,225 elephants have been killed. Electric fences have been set up to protect the humans from the elephants and the elephants from the humans. But it does not seem to be very helpful. Those do not last long. If natural systems are used, those will last longer. $275 million was used to control the human-elephant conflict in 2015. During the third quarter of the year 2016, around $225 million was spent. When the government is making such allocations, what the previous government did was sell elephant calves. They paved the way for the theft of 4 calves and sell them overseas. According to the Wildlife Department statistics, during the years 2000 to 2012, 2,269 elephants have died and 773 people have died. We need the required manpower to stop this. There are 200 vacancies for the positions of forest guard and forest security. Most of the forest officers are closed now because of the lack of staff. National parks have only 1 out of 4 required officers. There are 22 vacancies for the position of assistant director. There's a UMP MP near the Kalawava fishing village who is making a certain construction on a 1-acre land from the reserve. Due to this situation, the construction of 12 km long electric fence has stalled. The revenue of botanical gardens has increased rapidly. However, revenue of zoos has not increased. We cannot be pleased over this situation. When we travel overseas, they inform us of the attractions from the airport to the hotel. The hotel gives the information, but over here there is no such program. This is unfortunate. With the technological revolution, we must implement a system where tickets for botanical gardens can be booked online. There's a wildlife ministry with no environment. Environment is one ministry and wildlife is another. The leaves and flowers are in one place while the jungle is in another, and the wildlife is somewhere else. I accept there are vacancies. I have been raising this in cabinet. Around 70 to 80 people die each year from this situation. We cannot be satisfied by releasing 100,000 or 200,000. I will present a cabinet paper for 500,000 rupees. The Ministry of Samurdhi is prepared to give Samurdhi for those families. Minister Sajid is prepared to give loans for free housing.
While the Department of Wildlife Conservation seems to have over-understood the root problem of the human-elephant conflict, the only remedy they have taken so far is the erection of electric fences. Electric fences are not the biggest challenge for elephants who suffer terribly with the lack of food and water. The Department of Wildlife Conservation continues to erect electric fences on the pretext that they do not have sufficient funds to create proper feeding zones for elephants within the electric fence areas, and that the request of the people is for electric fences to be built. Electric fences nearly 400 kilometers long have been erected in the Thabbova and Karwalagaswava areas in the Putlam district, where the human-elephant conflict is intense. As a result of the electric fences erected, elephants now cannot approach the Thabbova reserve, which is their usual feeding grounds. This is because the Department of Wildlife Conservation erected these electric fences not after the elephants who had encroached villages in the area had moved to the Thabbova reserve, but while the elephants were still around the villages itself. Therefore, villagers have to carry out their daily work after giving room to the activities of the elephants. Said in more simple terms, the elephants exercise their power in the villages of Thabbova and Karwalagaswava and surrounding areas during the night and the day. Therefore, there is no purpose in constructing these electric fences. If the aim behind the erection of these fences is to be made a success, the elephants who have encroached the villages need to be driven back to the Thabbova reserve. Even though operations were carried out in the recent past to drive away the elephants, they were abandoned midway due to the lack of vehicles at the Department of Wildlife Conservation. There is no move to redirect the proposal made to provide rented vehicles to the MPs for their official duties to departments like the Wildlife Conservation, whose need is much more essential and complex. Certain activities carried out by the department using the funds allocated for them can be considered as a waste of public money. The lime plant project launched in Muriyakulam Thabbova can be considered as one such wasteful project. This lime plant project, which was launched at a cost of 30 rupees per lime plant and 50 rupees per hole dug, was not in the interest of the lime industry, rather with the expectation that the thorns in the plants will keep the elephants at bay. However, the lime plants were planted not on the boundary of the Thabova Reserve, rather surrounding villages which are nearly 10 kilometers away. Maybe this was a move made in order to ease the maintenance of the lime plant crops. The Department of Wildlife Conservation, which has entered into an agreement with an agrarian society to maintain the lime plants, has estimated a monthly cost of 7,500 rupees for the maintenance of lime crops in a radius of 1 kilometer. It is interesting to note that while elephants roam the forests which are covered with much more stronger and thicker thorns such as Andhara, whether a scientific study was carried out by the department to ascertain whether the elephant would be driven away by the thorns on the lime plant. If so, rather than challenging the decision made by the department, it is prudent to allow the lime plants, which are barely 2 inches in height, to grow further. As much as it is the duty for the department to save human settlements from the elephants, it is also their duty to provide feeding grounds to these pachyderms. Therefore, would it not be worth if the department took measures to cultivate food crops for the elephants within the forest reserves? Minister of Wildlife and Sustainable Development, this is over to you.
Rakia Abhishek 2016, the National Education and Career Guidance Program, was inaugurated under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena today.
The event aims at providing education and higher education information and job opportunities for our young generation and will be held on the 25th, 26th and 27th of November. The President also launched the National Jobs website at this occasion. Scholarships were also presented at this event.
අවසාන වශයෙන් සියපත් වීම හිමි කරගන්නේ RML ගුණසිංහ.
Attorney at Law Atula S. Ranagala says that the CID yesterday informed the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court that senior journalist, the late Lasantha Wickramatunge, was assassinated by the Army Intelligence. This was noted when the case was taken up before Mount Lavinia Magistrate Mohammed Sahabdeen. Attorney at Law Atula Ranagala elaborated.
Yesterday, the CID made a request and they are the fingerprints of the military intelligence personnel serving under Major Bulatwala and Major Prasanna were recorded with their consent. In addition, an order was obtained to retrieve the information on the discussions and meeting that took place over this murder at the time from the present Secretary of Defence. IP Nishanta from the CID presented facts in this regard and also informed courts that this murder was carried out by the Army Intelligence.
The Gampa Magistrates Court has issued an international warrant for the arrest of the editor of the Lanka e-news website, Sandarwan Senadira.
Court issued this warrant over the incident where the Lanka e-news website published a picture of the alleged suspect in the case pertaining to the assault of journalist Upali Tennakone on the charge of contempt of court. It was revealed in court that the picture of the alleged suspect was published on the website prior to the suspect being produced in an identification parade. The CID meanwhile informed court that a statement had been recorded from former Navy Commander Admiral Vasantakaran Nagoda in connection to the assault of Upali Tennakone. The case was postponed until the 9th of December.
A delegation including former President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is touring China on an invitation extended by the Chinese government, visited a Buddhist shrine today.
The delegation visited the Defo Shrine in the Zhejiang province in China. While the delegation, including the former president, is scheduled to meet heads of the Chinese government on the 28th of this month, they are also scheduled to visit Chinese free trade zones as well as the Shenzhen city. MP Lohan Datwata, as well as the chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna GLP, are also participating in the tour.
Minister D.M. Swaminathan, appearing on the Newsline program today, elaborated on the 65,000 permanent housing program for conflict-affected families in the northern and eastern provinces.
There is a misconception of this whole concept. Yeah. It has been unfortunately wrongly interpreted by many people. There has been a number of issues here. I will just get you the basic basic position as far as this is concerned. We need altogether 160,000 houses in the north and east.
Right.
Mostly in the north, 160,000 houses. That's a big sum.
Yeah.
In Mullaitivu area and Kilinochchi area has been very badly affected due to the war.
Right.
Now there is complete urgency of these houses to be built. Fundamentally, these are not just tin houses or something of this nature. These have been very scientifically done. Scientific evidence has been there for proof of their viability. They say that is once you go there, you get cooked. You don't get cooked at all.
Right. You got test homes.
Oh yes, there are test homes. 2 show homes are there.
Have you been in?
I have been many a times.
At what time in the day?
At 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
You didn't get.
No, perfectly
you didn't
okay.
get cooked.
There are high officials also have gone in there.
Right. You don't look like.
I don't know. I don't look cooked. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Right. So okay. So the technology does away with this heat problem.
It is, the conception of this is this. It's internationally we have to go in for prefabricated houses.
Yeah.
It's not a thing that I brought in here in Sri Lanka, because it's a thing that has to be done even if you go to any country.
Is it because of why prehab? Is it because it's quicker?
It's quicker, and number 2 is there are a lot of impediments.
TNA MP S. Vyalendran made the following statement today.
Persons from the previous regime possessed many hotels in Pasikuda. Sajin Bas too has built a hotel there, obtaining funds amounting to around 800 million from one company. Now the hotel has been handed over to someone else. If properties of Basil Rajapaksa can be taken over by the state, why cannot the same be done with Sajin Bas's lands? They should be taken over by the tourism sector. If one is to start a business in Sri Lanka, at least 500,000 will be charged as interest for 5 million. However, this 800 million was given interest-free.
Subject of violence against women has been in public discourse for many decades, but yet little has been done. Should this be limited to dialogue alone? News First, Azrazan reports.
Rape, assault, abuse, harassment are just a few atrocities that a large number of women, not only in Sri Lanka but around the world, have to face on a daily basis. A spike in violence against women has raised the bar for society, policymakers as well as responsible authorities to do more to stop the tears that continue to fall without any hope. On International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women, the first Sri Lankan woman to summit Mount Everest and prove the power of a woman to the entire nation expressed her thoughts to News First.
Most of the time parents are worried to send their daughters outside, not because of anything else, but because they're scared about the safety.
Yes, absolutely. That's very important. And I think that's where we need an education system also that talks about equality. Everyone has a right to live free from violence. And also the legal system. We have many laws against rape, against street sexual harassment, against domestic violence. Right? We need to create a society that talking out against it and shaming the perpetrator is the norm. Not for the woman to feel ashamed that she has just got harassed.
According to the European Union, approximately 60% of women are subjected to domestic violence.
In Sri Lanka, it's a particularly bad problem. So one of the things that the European Union is trying to do is work with government, work with NGOs and work with public personalities to raise awareness of this issue. It's awareness for women in the sense that they need to know that this is completely unacceptable, and there's an awareness also obviously for men that this is completely unacceptable. There is never an excuse to hit your wife. There's never an excuse to hit your daughter. It's time for society to really address them.
Experts say that crimes against women must be reported to the respective authorities for action to be taken.
First and foremost, we need to have good evidence. We need to know what's happening. We need to have facts and figures. That means that we need to know where it is happening and how it is happening. In addition, of course, to analyze why it is happening. But I think the most emerging and urgent issue is to see when something is happening, is it reported? Is it reported to the police? Is it reported to the district secretariat? Or is it reported to a hospital or an NGO? I often hear that this is the way men are, or this is the way the culture is functioning. That is not an excuse.
Overcoming obstacles, one woman had a message to all women in general.
You have been a real inspiration to every girl out there who is striving hard to achieve their dreams. What is your message to them?
My message is actually quite simple, might be harder to do, but I think Everest has shown that climbing a mountain or doing anything as a girl, it doesn't matter what you do, whether you want to be a pilot as a woman or if you're a boy and you want to be a ballet dancer. I think as a society also we need to allow the space for women to take on those dreams and to challenge those stereotypes.
Ceylon tea, an illustrious past but does it have a future? A globally recognised symbol of quality for nearly 150 years. One of Sri Lanka's biggest exports, an employer of more than 1 million Sri Lankans, and an industry under threat. Special report, Ceylon tea, does it have a future? Starting 28th of November, Monday to Friday on TV1's 9 o'clock news.
Well, on that note, we wrap up this edition of Primetime News. Thank you very much for stopping by. It was a pleasure having you this evening. I'm Joel Outscourt.
And I'm Rahna Farooq. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant night.
Good night.